ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਟੀਵੀ ਕੋਲ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਤੇ ਸਰੋਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ ਵਕਤ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਰਥ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਚ ਜੁੜੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਅਮਰਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਤਹਿ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ। ਵੀਰੋ, ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਡੀਸੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇੱਥੇ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦਾ ਪਾਵਰ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਹੈ, ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਹਿੱਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਘੱਟ ਗਿਣਤੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਆ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਇਕੱਤਰਤਾ ਰੱਖੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪੋਸਟ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੌਬਿੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਾ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਬਾਈਪਾਰਟੀਜ਼ਨ ਤੇ 50 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਸਲੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ, ਸਿੱਖ ਵੌਇਸ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ 1984 ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਘੱਲੂਘਾਰਾ ਉਸ ਦੀ 40ਵੀਂ ਵਰ੍ਹੇਗੰਢ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੱਖ ਰੱਖਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਉਲੀਕਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇਸ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਫੇਥ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਗੂਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੱਦਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਟੈਸਟਮਨੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਸਕਣ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਵਾਪਰਿਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਨਵੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਭੇਜੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਬਹਾਈ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਟਿਵ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਗੇ। ਕ੍ਰਿਸਚੀਅਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਤੇ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੰਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਕਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਿੰਗੀਆਂ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਵਰਲਡ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਿਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਯੂਐਸ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਅਹਿਮੀਅਤ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਆਓ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਸ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣਦੇ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦੇ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦੇ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ੇਸ਼ਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਵਿਚਾਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ।
Thank you very much. So there are, while Under Secretary General will make her way to stage and Martin as well, just some housekeeping announcements. We are not scheduled for any fire drills today. So if you do hear one, that will be real one. So exit. I know we all have very melodious tones in our cell phones, but can we please put them to silent because we would not like this event to be interrupted. Thank you very much. May I request, without any further delay, Honorable Congresswoman, who has always been great supporter of our community, our great leader, and a wonderful speaker. Last time when you were talking about transnational repression, Under Secretary General said to me, what a speech it was. So she's here again to listen to you today. May I request Honorable Congresswoman Catherine Clark to open the House today for this interfaith prayer service. Madam, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend, and what a pleasure to be with all of you, and a special thanks to Dr. Singh and the American Sikh Caucus Committee, and to my colleagues, Mary Gay Scanlon from Pennsylvania and David Valadeo from California, our co-chairs, for bringing so many of us together today. As we mark 40 years since the atrocious assault on the Golden Temple, we are making clear that Congress's support of this community remains unwavering and bipartisan. The American experiment is built on a premise of religious freedom. And some of our darkest chapters were written when we strayed from that foundation. And some of our greatest triumphs were forged when we marched closer to fully realizing it. But that project is still incomplete. The forces of religious oppression are as brazen as ever. The enemies of religious freedom are no longer constrained by national borders. The campaign to silence and terrorize this community is not a regional problem. These assaults on political opposition are not contained to any one country. This is a global threat. And as we have so painfully learned, that threat exists here on American soil. So it will take courage to stand up to that kind of repression. It takes unimaginable resilience to carry on the fight that you have all fought for so many years. So I want to thank you, and on behalf of the Democratic Caucus, thank you for speaking out. Thank you for mobilizing and organizing. History is with you. We are with you. I am proud to be your partner in building a kinder and repression-free future, where this sort of bigoted violence is a distant relic of the past. And I want to thank you for your partnership, for all you do, for not only your own communities, but for all of our communities. And really the model that you present about how to be inclusive and leading with love and seeing the divinity within each other. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you.
Sure, can I just say something quickly? Sure. I'm Tom Swazi, Congressman from New York. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Sat Sri Akal. I'm very happy to be here with everybody. I'm very close to the Sikh community in New York. I'm very happy to be with you briefly, just to send my regards from Glen Cove, New York, where when I was the mayor of Glen Cove in 1995, we opened a Gurdwara in Glen Cove. And I had a long relationship with the Sikh community. I love the fact that the Sikhs believe so much in equality and the idea that we're all equal as human beings. So thank you so much. Join us in the picture. Okay, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for our political leadership to be here with us. We fully appreciate the fact that Congress is very busy at the moment, specifically when there are some voting going on the budget issues and all of that. And for them to spare time on such a busy day is difficult. Sometimes our congressional colleagues and congressmen are too busy in the committees that they just make an excuse that we're just going to use the restroom, but they come to our program because obviously their main work is to do policy legislation, and they are doing it so nicely and kindly for all of us. And thank you very much for joining us today. Today is not an ordinary day. It's a very special day because we are commemorating those who given their life, those who have faced atrocities, those who have been victim of genocide. Madam Under Secretary General, I'm personally indebted to you, despite of your hectic schedule in the UN, because UN is very, very busy at the moment, what's happening in the world. But this is your commitment to our community and the people who have been oppressed and marginalized, that you accepted our invitation and graced the occasion today. All of us know why we are here today. We are here in these most troublesome times to come together, to pray. I was talking to Madam Under Secretary General on the way. We always talk about common humanity, and Sikhi believe in one common being, one supreme being, and everything is one. But I find it very strange. If it is one God, one humanity, why the pain of humanity is not one for all of us? When it comes to atrocity crimes, why we don't shoulder with others? Why don't we sympathize who have been oppressed? Imagine, I mean, there are only few Muslims, including myself, in the room and quite a few Christians here. Imagine if holy site of Makkah, Kaaba, was surrendered by about 150,000 army personnel. Oh, Vatican had a big army standing outside and bombarding the Mecca, Kaaba, or Vatican City. Imagine if these places had no access of press. Imagine if you had all those pilgrims there, for example, on Hajj, or gathered in Karbala on certain days, and they were brutally massacred. That's what happened to the Sikhs 40 years ago. on a very specific day than when they were there at their holiest shrine, Sri Darbar Sahib in Amritsar, to commemorate the martyrdom of their fifth master, Guru Arjan Dev. A Prime Minister ordered that that very revered holy place of Sikhism, which is heart of Sikhism, should be razed to ground with tanks, with army, and all the lines of telephones were cut. Media had no access. And that was the start of Sikh genocide, 1984, which lasted for another decade, 1984 to 1995. And that trauma goes on. All these young people sitting there, this trauma started from a generation before us, people like Dr. Pritpal, Raj Singh, Yadvinder Singh. These guys are the people who were directly affected. And then this generation, there is no closure. So why we are here today to remember all those, because one atrocity adds into another. If the world doesn't recognize atrocity against one community, then other atrocities happen. I trust Madam Under Secretary General. If the UN at the time would have recognized Sikh genocide in 1984 or 1995, we wouldn't have a Srebrenica. We wouldn't have a genocide of Muslims in Serbia. Because when international structure doesn't act on time, then other atrocities happen. So we gather here today to remember all those, souls who are lost, because we believe not only on those slogans of one common humanity, but we believe one common pain of humanity as well. There are two parts of this service today. The first part would be that we'll pray together, and then we'll observe a moment of silence for all those who have been lost in the past and those who are facing atrocities today. From the streets of Palestine to Yemen, Iran, to Manipur, elsewhere. Because as we said, one common humanity, one common pain. So we will start with your permission, Madam, with the interfaith prayer first. I will call upon one by one all our Sikh faith leaders. First of all, I will start because it's a occasion which we are really dedicating to the martyrs of 1984. So we'll start with the Sikh prayer. I would request Paisa to come for the Sikh prayer, which will be followed by prayers from other faith denominations. Thank you.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਵਿਸਰ ਗਈ ਸਭ ਤਾਤ ਪਰਾਈ ਜਬ ਤੇ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਮੋਹਿ ਪਾਈ। Ladies and gentlemen and respected members of various faiths, I am honored to speak to you today about teachings of Sikhism and how they can guide us towards creating a more harmonious and unified society. Sikhism, founded by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, emphasizes the oneness of humanity and the importance of living a life of virtue, compassion, and service. Let me share with you one prayer or quotes from our scripture, which is called Guru Granth Sahib. I have totally forgotten my jealousy of others since I found the Sat Sangat, the company of the holy. No one is my enemy and no one is a stranger. I get along with everyone. Whatever God does, I accept that as good. This is the sublime wisdom I have obtained from the holy. The one God is pervading in all. Gazing upon him, beholding him, Nanak blossoms forth in happiness. As gazing upon him is explained by Guru Nanak Dev Ji in the Mool Mantra, which is the key concept of God as taught in Sikhism. Each aspect of Mool Mantra provides a foundation for building an ideal society. Ik Onkar, which is first word of our prayer, as well. One universal creator God emphasizes the unity and oneness of all existence. This promotes a society that values equality and inclusiveness, recognizing the divine presence in all individuals, regardless of race, religion, and social status. Satnam, to name, highlights the importance of truth. A society based on this principle would prioritize honesty, transparency, and integrity in all dealings, reducing corruption and fostering trust among its members. Karta Purakh, creative being personified, acknowledges God as the creator. This inspires respect for environment and all forms of life, encouraging sustainable practice and sense of stewardship. A society shaped by Mool Mantra principle would be characterized by unity, equality, honesty, environmental stewardship, fearlessness, harmony, continuity, self-reliance, and spiritual growth. Such a society would strive to create an environment where individuals can live with dignity, purpose, and mutual respect. These are key words of our prayers, which we have every day in our Gurdwaras. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bhai Sahab. May I request the faith leaders that we would expect you to talk about, just restrain yourself to the core text. We appreciate that we all have a lot to tell about our faith, but if we just curtail ourselves to the core text and translation, that would be very helpful. May I request now Hafiz Habibullah, when you talk about Hafiz, it means the man who memorized Quran, all of it, to recite some verses from Quran and translate it for us. Hafiz Habibullah, please.
Okay. नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फौज बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनु दुखुलू फिस्सिल्मि काफ़ा वला तत्तबिउ खुतुवातिश शैतान इन्नहु लकुम अदुव्वुम मुबीन वअतसिमू बिहब्लिल्लाहि जमीअन वला तफर्रकू या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनु इन्ना खलकनाकुम मिन ज़करिन व उनसाकुम व जअलनाकुम शुऊबन व कबाइल लितआरफू इन्ना अक्रमकुम इंदल्लाहि अतकाकुम व नुनज़्ज़िलु मिनल कुरआनि मा हुवा शिफाउन व रहमतुल लिल मुमिनीन व ला यज़ीदु ज़ालिमीन इल्ला खसारा। सदक़ल्लाहु मौलाना अज़ीम।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The translation of these verses of Quran. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, contains numerous verses that emphasizes the values of peace, unity, and faith. Here are some of the key verses related to these themes. O you who have believed, enter into peace completely and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. And if they incline to peace, then incline to it also and rely upon Allah. Indeed, it is He who is the hearing, the knowing. The believers are but brothers, so make settlement between your brothers and fear Allah that you may receive mercy. And hold firmly to the rope of Allah altogether and do not become divided. And remember the favor of Allah upon you. When you were enemies and He brought your hearts together and you became by His favor brothers, and you were on the edge of pit of the fire and He saved you from it. Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses that you may be guided. O mankind, indeed, we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. The messengers has believed in what we revealed to him from his Lord, and so have the believers. All of them have believed in Allah and his angels and his books and his messengers. We make no distinction between any of his messengers, and they say, we hear, we obey your forgiveness, our Lord, and you is the destination. Oh, you have believe in Allah and his messenger and the book that he sent down upon his messenger and the scripture which he sent down before, and whoever disbelieves in Allah, his angels, his books, his messengers, the last day has certainly gone far astray. These verses highlight the Quran's emphasis on fostering a peaceful, united, and faith-driven community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Javed. May I request now Canon Reverend Dr. Joshua Christopher, the Honorary Director for Oxford Center for Religion and Policy and the head of the Bible Society in UK, to share some reflections and core text from the Christian denomination. First prayer.
I read from Luke. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Read from Matthew. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I'm reading the peace prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi. Lord, make us an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Lord, we pray for all the victims of violence around the world, especially 40 years ago. We pray for the people who lost their lives at the Golden Temple because of the violence. Lord, we pray peace may prevail, and the justice and peace will kiss each other and go hand in hand everywhere. We pray this meeting, blessed everyone who is taking peace around the world. Blessed everyone who is taking justice around the world. Make us those instruments of peace and justice. Amen.
Amen. We have also with us Brother Hussain Budra from the Druze community. It's a small minority community in Middle East. May I request him to share some prayer with us?
Thank you so much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings in the name of Allah, the compassionate, the most merciful. On behalf of the Druze community and commemorating this very sad day for the Sikh people and for the whole world, I would like to express my deepest sympathy, very sincere feeling for all victims of this tragedy, their families, their friends. Never again. Never again. Those tragedies, those incidents should never happen again. History have proven with a very high cost, unfortunately, that our clash upon the land, upon the heavens, is making us lose the lands, lose Mother Earth, and we should not. We pray for the Almighty God to lead our wills, to enlighten our minds, to reach peace. Peace. Diversity is God's will, as our colleagues just said about يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. O people, we created you from a man and woman and made you peoples and nations to meet. إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. The best who is the one who fears God and must in others. So, diversity is God's will. Pluralism is God's intention. And God is peace. So peace be upon you. Let peace prevail in the whole world. God bless America and God bless you all.
Thank you. We try to accommodate all religious minorities. We always appreciate even the religious diversity amongst the faith denomination. Islam is a faith to so many continents, so many regions, and we have diversity, but we are one. Well, I'm so pleased to see Honorable Congressman Jim Costa, who is really a very strong voice for all of us in this House, who's very passionate about human rights and excellent public speaker. I always listen to recordings later on once he speaks. Each word he speaks is full of wisdom. Madam Undersecretary General, your predecessor, Mr. Idama Dieng, Undersecretary General before you, was hosted by Mr. Costa a couple of times here, and he still remembers him in high regard. May I request Honorable Congressman Jim Costa, because I know it's a very busy day, it's a voting day, to express his views, because then we will resume our prayer. My apologies from the faith leaders, but because congressmen have to go for voting and for their committee meetings. Honorable Congressman Jim Costa. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I am honored to be here with you today, and thank you for allowing me to speak out of order. It's one of those days here, and we have a classified briefing that's going on right now that deals with, sadly, the hostage situations that we find ourselves in throughout the world, and particularly in the Middle East. I am so honored, though, that we would have this very important and diverse group of religious leaders here. You know, it is a reflection, I think, of who we are. There are some beautiful words that I am fond of repeating in America's founding over almost 250 years ago. One of those phrases is, "We the people." It's we the people. It's all of us. And one of my other favorite refrains is, "In order to form a more perfect union." Now that's aspirational. In order to form a more perfect union. I don't think any of us, whatever our religious beliefs are, think that we may be able in our lifetime to obtain perfection. We trust in God and our spiritual beliefs to try to determine how we might develop a more perfect union, but it is wonderful aspirations for our religious views to understand that we are imperfect as human beings, with all the imperfections that we know historically that have taken place in this world we live in. So we live in a country that was founded in large part from people that were trying to escape religious persecution. I mean, think about that. And yet we still see religious persecution today. And that's why your gathering here is so important, because your diversity makes my heart swell, because you reflect the desire to protect religious beliefs. In this world we live in, and you can pick any part of the world we might discuss today, we see various populations throughout the world representing every major and minor religious belief reflected. That's the good news. The bad news is just that, sadly, in recent years, we continue to witness and experience religious persecution throughout the world. And as a result, violations of human rights, because we believe that freedom to religion is a human right, to believe as we think our Creator endowed us to believe. And many of your faiths reflected and represented here today have experienced the human rights violations, and whether you're Sikh or whether you're non-Muslim or Muslim or of other religious groups. In my own district, some of you know, in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley, very, very diverse communities. We've had attacks in Guinduardos and attacks upon Sikh representatives for no other reason than what you're demonstrating here this afternoon. Your religious faith and your belief by your culture and your dress. In other words, the way that you comfortably express your faith is a matter of the history of your own religious beliefs. But because extreme factions in our own country, we see people lashing out and attacking individuals for no other reason because they see your dress to represent something that that causes a reaction. I can't explain or try to, those kinds of extremism are simply should never be tolerated in a free and open society that we have in this country. Religious freedom, I think, is critical to the health of a diverse society, and it certainly is one of the elements in our country that is based upon an important element of democracy. It's written in our Constitution, freedom of religion. And so our founding fathers, like the founding fathers of other populous nations in South Asian states that include many where some of you have your origin or your families from. I'm talking about Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, where supposedly religious freedom is a tenet of those countries. But yet we see politics intervening in parts of Asia and other parts of the world. And it raises concerns for me about how we protect religious freedoms, not only in our country, but in other parts of the world. So I think the strength of our democracy and other democracies around the world is to reiterate the basic human rights and freedoms that we believe. Another refrain that I don't know, I heard Ken Burns, the noted American storyteller and historian, say, there's been a lot of discussion over 200 years as to what Thomas Jefferson meant when he wrote "In Pursuit of Happiness." In pursuit of happiness. What did he mean? We all think, in terms of our religious beliefs, of what we think in pursuit of happiness means. A community that bonds itself, that bridges itself together. So we have to push back on the politics of hate. Dr. Martin Luther King, thank you. We have to push back. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you know, the only way that you can remove darkness is through light. Very poetic. The only way you remove darkness is through light. As a member of the Congressional American Sikh Caucus, I just want all of you and others of the religious groups that are represented here today to know that I, and I think those of us who feel this way, stand up for your freedom of pursuit of happiness, your freedom of religion, of your choice to escape persecution, because it is a human right. And this dialogue that you are having this afternoon and coordinating this dialogue and where you take it from here is so important, because we are, I think, partners in this effort. This dialogue and your efforts to remind us to do what is right is so important. So I think it's a critical time, because in history, world history, we've always had the politics of fear and the politics of hope in societies throughout the world. And we know that the politics of fear can be successful. We see it today in our country and around the world. I aspire to the politics of hope, and I believe all of you do as well. And that's why we have to let people know that they need not fear the pursuit of happiness and religious freedom. They need not fear because people worship in different ways than what they may be familiar with. That we need to protect those rights of religious freedom. So the United States and the United Nations must continue to advocate in addressing where we see human rights violations taking place, where we see human rights and the violation of those rights taking place. And we can't allow for religious persecution to flourish or carry on in any part of the world. It's the opposite of darkness. It's the shedding of light. So let me close by just saying thank you. Thank you for this dialogue. Thank you for doing what you do, because the world deserves, I think, the freedom to practice in whatever religious customs and beliefs you may hold. Let me say that again. The world deserves for everyone to be able to pursue their religious beliefs in the manner they choose. And that's why you're here. So let me just say, let's continue to work together to root out hate and extremism, and let every person know that it's we the people, and we continue every day to do our best, in order to form a more perfect union. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. I think.
One other
Sure, please.
quick favor I will ask, because I feel the faith here. Pray for us. We need the help,
Indeed.
not only for our country, but for the world we live in.
Sure.
It's very much needed.
That's what we're doing today. Thank you, sir. Well, I think those of you who haven't heard Congressman Costa before must compliment that I told you his words are always full of wisdom, and he impresses everyone. Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your leadership. Yes, I mean, this is our sequence, which is obviously always bit rescheduled, because the honorable members of Congress are very kind to come and reflect on the event, and we have to obviously give them the room during our proceedings because they have to go for voting and all of that. I would now request our Buddhist faith leader, Mr. Bhante. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing your surname because I don't want to pronounce it wrong. Monk Bhante, to please come and share with us the Buddhist prayer. Thank you, sir.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena Sada Sotti Bhavantu Te. Buddha born in India. He's Indian, and he read his teaching. He's our mentor, guru, teacher. He pointed out something how to live with the peace and happiness, and he is the mainly emphasize loving kindness. And love and compassionate and sympathetic joy and equanimity, the respect to the life, and first principle of the Buddhist, the 5 precepts that called Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhyami, not to assassinate or kill or take off someone's life, and mentally or physically someone take it off someone's making violence, making trouble for someone, that is against the Buddhist rules. So that's everybody, as our congressman mentioned, this faithful leaders teaching and their spiritual guidance, the politician practice that may be making blessing for the whole world. And as all that things happen, and practicing loving kindness, I want to make a loving kindness prayer for everyone. May they bring the peace and happiness to the world. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living being there may be, without exception, weak or strong, lone, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deserve one another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so toward all living beings, one should cultivate for heart to boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment. Whether standing, walking or sitting, lying down or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here. Not falling into erroneous views, but virtues and inward with vision, removing desire for sensual pleasures, one comes never again to birth into the womb. May you be well, happy and peaceful.
Thank you, sir, for your kind prayer. May I now request Mr. Anthony Vance, who is representative of Baha'i community in United States. So, Mr. Anthony Vance, please, for Baha'i prayer.
Thank you very much. This prayer from the writings of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, reflects both the tremendous optimism that he has for the future of the human race, the immediate future of the human race, its destiny, and yet at the same time acknowledges the kind of oppression that we're commemorating today that is being experienced in order to get there. Magnified be thy name, O my God, for that thou hast manifested the day which is the King of days, the day which thou didst announce unto thy chosen ones and thy prophets in thy most excellent tablets, the day whereon thou didst shed the splendor of the glory of all thy names upon all created things. Great is his blessedness, whosoever hath set himself towards thee and entered thy presence and caught the accents of thy voice. I beseech thee, O my Lord, by the name of him round whom circleth in adoration the kingdom of thy names, that thou wilt graciously assist them that are dear to thee to glorify thy word among thy servants, and to shed abroad thy praise amidst thy creatures, so that the ecstasies of thy revelation may fill the souls of all the dwellers of thine earth. Since thou hast guided them, O my Lord, unto the living waters of thy grace, grant by thy bounty that they may not be kept back from thee. And since thou hast summoned them to the habitation of thy throne, drive them not out from thy presence through thy loving kindness. Send down upon them what shall wholly detach them from aught else except thee, and make them able to soar in the atmosphere of thy nearness in such wise that neither the ascendancy of the oppressor nor the suggestions of them that have disbelieved in thy most august and most mighty self shall be capable of keeping them back from thee.
Thank you, sir. We have with us the very first ever Sikh member of the California State Assembly. We are so proud of her, Jasmeet Bains. She's from our community, and she very kindly introduced a resolution on the Sikh genocide, which was the fourth resolution passed by a state legislature after Texas, Pennsylvania, and some others. That was passed unanimously at the State Assembly of California. Because it's a budget day for her, she couldn't make it from California to here, but she is with us virtually today. Due to some logistical issue, we couldn't put screen here, but she's just there behind you. So you will hear from her virtually her thoughts about today's event. And we are very fortunate to have our first co-chair who was so kind to us to form this caucus, Congresswoman Judy Chu, because Jasmeet was online, ma'am, when you came. So after her, we will hear from Honorable Congresswoman Judy Chu as well. Thank you. Jasmeet, floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Very well.
Saਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. I am so sorry I was not able to join everybody on such an amazing and important day today. I proudly represent in the State Assembly as the first Sikh American elected to California state office. This is something that's been a long time coming for our community. There is so much to appreciate about being in this position, but at the same time, the work that is being done by the American Sikh Caucus in addition to other members across the country, in addition to being in solidarity with the Sikh community, we must do more. Today on the floor, I introduced a resolution for the 1986 events of Saka Nakodar, recognizing the Indian Army coming in and annihilating 4 young men for protecting and standing up for their right to freedoms and speech and freedom of religion. 1984 Sikh Genocide Resolution was one of the very first resolutions I passed. This is something that impacts all young Sikh youth that have grown up after the events of 1984. We have grown up with the memories. There is not one Sikh member that does not know what happened at that time. The targeted killing of specifically the Sikh community in just 3 days, when they turned off the media presence, they turned off any access, and anybody was allowed to, quote, kill as many Sikh people as you would like, end quote, was being reported on radios, TV stations. This was a targeted attempt by the Indian government to destroy my identity. I am a proud Sikh American. I am proud to stand in solidarity with my community. Today and this year marks the 40th anniversary. It has been 40 years, but we have not forgotten. We have not stopped hearing the voices of the women and men who died during the events of 1984. We will continue to make sure that we raise this awareness and seek justice for the victims of 1984. The events of 1984 were, in fact, a genocide. This was not a program. This was not a riot. This was, in fact, a genocide. And I urge Congress to also stand in solidarity with California, who has declared the events unanimously in both houses, Assembly and Senate, has declared that the events of 1984 were, in fact, a Sikh genocide targeted attempt by the Indian government to destroy the Sikh community. And I urge Congress to also pass a resolution recognizing that 1984 was, in fact, an attempted genocide of the Sikh community. I will leave this here. I am very proud of being Sikh. I am proud of my identity. I am proud of my community. I stand in solidarity. Thank you to everyone that has gathered today in solidarity of peace and progression of protection of human rights. Thank you so much, and I am so honored, and I apologize I could not be there with you all today on this amazing day. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you very much, Jasmeet, for your wonderful work you do. UN Undersecretary General is here, and we communicated with her about the resolution you brought, and she thanks you as well for carrying forward this wonderful work of recognizing the genocides, because sometimes many genocides doesn't get recognized, but it makes our work much easier when the legislatures pass it here. So we are so amazed. All our women leadership is here. That's why this caucus is so progressive, because when we started it 10 years ago, rather 11 years ago, it was a wonderful lady from Los Angeles who held the hand of our community. It wasn't easy. You know it and we know it, how difficult it was to form a caucus for a minority community on the Hill. It was opposed drastically by those who oppressed the community over the years, who still don't want this community to have its own say on the Hill. But she stood with us, and we value that, madam. You become our voice. And if we voice for human rights and religious freedom, we credit you for your leadership. We have with us Honorable Congresswoman Judy Chu, our first co-chair. May I request her to please grace the occasion with her remarks.
Hello, I'm Congress Member Judy Chu. I come from Southern California, Los Angeles area, and I'm honored to be here with the American Sikh Caucus Committee for the Interfaith Prayer Service for Global Peace. When I first came to Congress, I quickly realized that many of my colleagues did not understand the Sikh community or the challenges that Sikh Americans faced. Even years after 9/11, many Sikhs across America were facing bullying and even racially motivated violence. That is why in 2013, I decided to establish the bipartisan American Sikh Congressional Caucus along with my Republican colleague, Representative David Valadao. We founded this caucus to give Sikh Americans a voice in Congress to ensure that our nation could understand the beauty of the Sikh religion and to celebrate the great accomplishments of Sikh Americans, including Congressman Dalip Singh Sound, who was the first Asian, Indian, and Sikh American to ever serve in Congress. And yes, you are right, there was resistance from some to forming this caucus. But we did prevail. And the fact that you are all here today continuing to raise your voices shows how important it was to make sure that this caucus remains intact and active. So it tells, what we see is that people are learning more about the great Sikh traditions. And in fact, now there's an annual langar, and there is a pride for us to see that there are Sikh American events taking place right here in the U.S. Capitol more than 10 years after this caucus was founded. And it's especially important because the challenges facing the Sikh community persist. In fact, FBI data released last October found that religiously motivated hate crimes were at their highest since 2001, with an increase of 17% since 2021. And Sikhs remain the second most targeted group in the nation for religiously motivated hate crime incidents. I was horrified learning the story of Jasmer Singh, the New York Sikh man who was driving his wife home from the doctor last year, but got into a fender bender. The other driver punched him so hard, he fell to the ground, sustaining a brain injury that subsequently killed him. Mr. Singh and all Sikhs in America deserve so much more than that. They deserve to live in safety, to care for their families, to contribute to their communities without being targeted for who they are. That is why it was so important for me to pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which includes my bill with Representative Don Beyer, the No Hate Act, to provide local law enforcement with the resources and training necessary to improve hate crimes tracking and reporting and prosecuting, including for Sikh Americans. And I'm continuing to work with the Department of Justice to ensure that the administration has the resources it needs to implement this critical law so that we can track and prevent these incidents of hate against Sikh Americans and all AAPI communities. We must also stand up against transnational repression and the alleged killing and targeting of Sikhs by individuals coordinating directly with the Indian government. It is unconscionable that a foreign government would order assassinations of Sikhs, and the U.S. must make clear that we will not tolerate this horrific political violence. These actions are meant to silence and intimidate Sikhs here in the United States, in Canada, and around the world. And I will work with my Sikh Caucus colleagues here in Congress to prevent political violence and transnational repression and to seek justice for its victims. So thank you again for hosting this very, very important interfaith prayer service and for honoring the victims of violence. I am proud to stand with you, and I look forward to continuing our work together.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman. If you have few more moments, we have only one more prayer, and then we'll be observing a moment of silence for victims of violence. So if you can spare a few more moments and join us for that, thank you. So as I said, whenever a member of Congress come here, we have to obviously request them to take the podium. May I request our last interfaith prayer now, Mr. Mark Ming, to share a Manipuri tribal prayer for peace with us, followed by which we'll have 1 moment silent and a candle for the victims of violence.
Prayer for peace for Manipur, the Kuki tribes who are going through untold suffering right now. Let's pray. Vanalesit in same Jungmang Patin. Nachate kana ogin hin ngain lang samna zalena hin pain. Zayona kunin tha hin piwin. Jerusalem na tundokit bangin kanam kagamu tungdon. Nang malung mong lamunga ka hope thay na dingwin samlat na naipiwin. Amen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will all now stand and observe a moment of silence. So that concludes the first part of our service today, which was we have interfaith prayer service across the faiths for the victims of violence, those who have been persecuted, and remembering our martyrs of 1984 and of the Sikh genocide. And we already heard our political leadership very much supporting justice and fair play for these people. We always talk about peace, but peace without justice is nothing. If you don't have justice, there is no closure, and peace cannot be achieved. No reconciliation can happen if justice is not served. My friend Simona from the Office of the Prevention of Genocide, a very old colleague of mine, have seen me speaking in the UN, at the UN forums where people didn't like this idea. Some of the people always talk about peace, but I said, where is justice? Without justice, there is no peace, no reconciliation. So second part of our deliberations today would be reflections from various people who have been persecuted. We will have a Sikh perspective. We'll also have others who have been persecuted, because ideology of Sikhism is, it talks not only about its own rights, but the rights of others. The exemplary Sikh history exhibits this, that the Sikh gurus or the Sikh masters given their life for other faiths, not for their own faith, but for other faiths. So that tradition will continue today. So we'll have now various persecuted communities who would reflect about their persecution. But before I do that, ladies and gentlemen, you will give a very big round of applause to Under Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency Alice de Rito, for her presence with us today. She has been a great voice for all the persecuted. Mind you, UN is not a people's body. I always say that. It's the body of the member states, of the nations. And when someone like her speaks about people, some nations and some countries get offended. But she's continuing her work so courageously. One of the reasons for that probably is that she's not a career diplomat. She comes from the grassroots. She always worked with the grassroots. She served the humanity at the grassroots, so she feels the pain. And this is second time during this year that she has accepted our invitation, specifically in these busy times when UN has to deal with so many things, to be with us today. It wasn't easy for her to be here today. Madam, we are really indebted for your leadership and whatever you do for us and for everyone. May I request her to grace the occasion with her remarks. Her Excellency Alice de Rito, Under Secretary General of the United Nations.
Thank you, as always. Dr. Iktidar, and I would like to begin by thanking Dr. Pritpal, thanking all the Congress members who we've seen here today and who continue supporting the Sikh Caucus. And most importantly, to you again, Dr. Iktidar and Dr. Pritpal, for inviting me to speak at this interfaith prayer service at the United States House of Representatives. And it is an honor for me to brief members of this group again for the second time the past 6 months. I was last here in February 2024, and the brief then was focused on transnational repression. So today I'm honored to be part of an interfaith prayer for peace and to honor the victims of violence. We know that this topic is very timely. Violence has always been with us. It continues to spike around the world and results in growing pain and suffering of innocent people. And in this context, we also see the Charter of the United Nations, Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law, and the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide being blatantly disregarded. So I cannot hide my deepest concern, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot but tell you how many sleepless nights I spend when I see all these rights and dignity being stepped on every single day in front of our eyes. And of course, I do understand that the capacity for impunity is built on what happened in the past for which people were not held accountable. So today we see it in the press, we see it in TV, we see it in social media, and the world is really drifting, and so is humanity. So I especially witness this with a very heavy heart because of the position that I hold as a United Nations Special Advisor on the prevention of genocide. To continue witnessing violence that presents the risk factors of genocide and related crimes. Victims and potential victims write emails to me every single day. On the way here, when we were coming with the Dr. Iktidar, we were talking about how connected we are to the grassroots. And part of that connection means that I know people who call me and tell me we will be attacked tomorrow. A lot of people. Some of them have said their names, like for example, people in Sudan, a country for which I have issued 10 statements, 10. It's a record. It's never been any kind of that kind of focus, me trying to shift the world's attention to what's going on in Sudan. I have briefed the Security Council just 2 weeks ago, explaining you have to take action, calling on the Security Council to take action. And I speak about Sudan now because it's not only Sudan from where I get these calls from people that I know. It's also from other contexts where I have worked, where I have lived. I get calls from Myanmar. I've worked in Myanmar and I get calls. People tell me this is what's happening to us. There is an attack that is imminent and this is going to happen to us. And so we need to keep putting pressure to be exerted on the warring parties everywhere to protect civilians and to respect international obligations, international human rights and humanitarian obligations. So these victims and potential victims, they call me. They tell me what happened to them and what may happen, and that the worst is yet to come. And you can imagine what it feels when they know that they can access me, and when then they know that an attack is imminent, and then the attack happens. So with the mandate that I hold, in many circumstances, I issue public alerts or engage in discreet preventive diplomacy. And my office also builds the capacities of relevant stakeholders to prevent genocide and related crimes. And that's in recognition is that we cannot do everything, in as much as I would want to do everything, but we cannot do everything. So our approach is 100% victim-centered. In all our activities, we put survivors at the core. We listen to their voices. We protect them and enhance their ability to prevent violence because they count and because telling their stories in itself, preventative action. Last year, we marked 75 years since the adoption of the Genocide Convention. And on that occasion, we honor the tireless work of Raphael Lemkin, who gave the crime a name, leading efforts in codifying genocide and making the adoption of the convention a reality. To date, the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide has been ratified by 153 countries. And while it's noteworthy that so many nations have committed to preventing and punishing genocide, my office continues to call for the universal ratification of the convention, as well as its national domestication and effective implementation at the national level. Because by ratifying and domesticating this landmark convention, we advance victims' memory and support survivors too. So our commitment to preventing genocide is strengthened in light of this year's commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Next year, we mark the 30th anniversary of the genocide in Srebrenica. And I must say that the office that I lead, we do not determine whether a genocide has happened or not. We rely on courts of law to advise us on whether genocides have happened. And so therefore, so many victims, so many survivors around the world would want to find some sense of closure. And we do know that the consequences of genocides are very real, including the intergenerational trauma that afflicts survivors and the fear and divisions that are typical of post-genocidal societies. The scars are very difficult, very profound and difficult to heal. So for this reason, we must do all within our power to prevent genocide. This is the call of the Genocide Convention. We must meet more in spaces like this. You know, the Genocide Convention in its Article 1, contracting parties undertook to prevent genocide, recognizing a very important sentence, recognizing that at all periods of history, genocide has inflicted great losses on humanity. And I always think about that sentence and think, what is it about human beings that we have to keep inflicting this kind of atrocities on each other? What is it about us? And I'm always talking about, I come from Kenya, that's my country of origin. And I grew up in a space that we shared with wildlife. And the wildlife were not kept somewhere safe. They interacted with us. And I never, ever, ever saw elephants, for example, plotting to go and kill other elephants en masse. I never saw that happen, like of lions plotting to go and kill other lions en masse. What is wrong with us as human beings? We have been given reason by God, and this is how we use the reason. So the losses that happen after genocide start with deteriorating trust among groups and the disregard for people's identity and dignity. Once a genocide takes place, the socio-economic impact on a society is devastating as the priority shifts from advancing human development to the total elimination of a group. The resources required to overcome such a situation are immense, and the cost of restoring a sense of emotional and psychological safety are also enormous and not limited to one generation. So for these reasons, we cannot allow prevention to fail. Prevention must be our guiding principle and our daily mission. And we must keep asking consistently, how come we assign so much money to wars, but so little to prevention? We know prevention works. Doctors tell us all the time prevention is better than cure. And yet we don't assign resources to prevention. And so prevention as our guiding principle in our daily mission must be a task for state representatives and government officials, but also for all those in positions of influence. And these include religious leaders. Religious leaders have a strong influence over the behavior of those who follow their faith and share their beliefs. When they speak out, their followers listen. And this is the message of the Plan of Action for Religious Leaders and Actors to prevent and counter incitement to violence that could lead to atrocity crimes, a document developed by my office with the support of religious leaders and actors from around the world, including Dr. Iktidar Cheba. He played a very big role in developing this document because the UN, the Secretary General always says that the United Nations may not have weapons, may not be able to go somewhere and stop wars by also waging war, but we have a voice and we have convening power. And so we use the voice and convening power, and with working with my predecessor, this Plan of Action for Religious Leaders and Actors, was put in place. So further to religious leaders, my office also engages and works closely with other constituencies that play a key role in the prevention of genocide and related crimes, including traditional leaders, women, sports teams and athletes, and media experts. The message we have for them is the same. If you have influence on people, use it positively to prevent violence and save lives. Sometimes genocide prevention starts off by acknowledging the suffering of the victims of discrimination, exclusion, and violence. And this should be all the time, because such acknowledgement becomes easier when we can put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, when we recognize ourselves in those who are different or perceived to be different. In other words, when we are able to empathize with each other. So today, this is also my message to all of you attending this interreligious prayer. Empathize with each other, with those you don't see as they are too different from your lifestyle or belief system. Talk to them and listen to their stories. You'll discover that their pain is your pain too, as we are all human beings, despite our differences, and that coexistence and respect for diversity is easier than we thought. So our work with all the constituencies I have just mentioned is connected to the implementation of the United Nations Strategy and Plan of Action on Hate Speech, the main United Nations policy on this subject. So as the United Nations system-wide focal point for the implementation of this strategy, I know that partnership is essential to tackle and address comprehensively and effectively hate speech, an indicator and trigger of the risk of genocide as per the framework of analysis developed by my office. And we often emphasize that there has not been a single genocide in this world that was carried out without being preceded by, accompanied by, and followed by hate speech against the targeted community. So it's absolutely important that we deal with hate speech. And so this is why I firmly believe that successfully preventing genocide and addressing its risk factors need to be based on solid collaboration among different stakeholders or providing different expertise and skills. So for instance, partnership among member states in the General Assembly of the United Nations resulted in 2021 in Resolution 75/309 on promoting interreligious and intercultural dialogue and tolerance in countering hate speech. This resolution gave us the International Day for Countering Hate Speech. So just a few days from now, next week actually, on 18th June, we will celebrate the 3rd International Day at the UN headquarters, the International Day for Countering Hate Speech, with an event that my office is organizing with the Kingdom of Morocco, focusing on the importance of investing in the power and voice of youth to counter hate speech. And I invite you all to join us in this important event in person or virtually. And I must say that at this point, I'm very grateful, as always, to Dr. Iktidar and Dr. Pritpal, because they always come for our events in New York. They always show up. And it means a lot. And each time, for example, when I am speaking in New York in the General Assembly, and I'm sitting at the front there, and just seeing the faces of Dr. Pritpal and Dr. Iktidar, it means a lot, because I speak to them as my friends. The speech that I'm giving takes on new meaning because I'm speaking also to my friends who have come all the way from DC and also from UK sometimes. So obviously engaging youth in prevention is crucial to develop and implement effective strategies to prevent genocide and related crimes. As youth constitute the majority of the population in many regions, it is youth who very often pay the brunt of violence, conflict, and genocide and other serious crimes. They are often deprived of the most basic rights. Many have to leave their countries to flee persecution, to look for better opportunities, like many of you did. However, youth are also a beacon of hope. They are innovative, transformative, technology savvy, and are not afraid of change. They can think outside the box and bring solutions to the problems that we adults create. This is to say that the voices of youth matter, and it is important to take them into account, especially when implementing preventative actions, because only when youth are included can prevention be forward-looking and sustainable. So, distinguished guests, as we are all gathered here in this interfaith prayer today, I would like to remind us all that it is only by coming together that we will be able to prevent the horrors of the past, and that we must remember and that we must not forget, because it is in remembering that we are able to prevent. And this interreligious prayer today offers an opportunity in this direction to emphasize with the other, to join hands, to leave no one behind, and ultimately recommit without hesitation to prioritize prevention of genocide and related crimes. We owe it to the victims, but also to the younger generations to ensure a more peaceful, inclusive, and just future where diversity is an asset and genocide is not an option. Thank you very much again for having us here. And before I go, I'd just like to, Dr. Iktidar mentioned Simona. So, and she's sitting behind there. So for everybody, that is Simona Cruciani. She is the engine behind so much of what is done in our office. I'm usually always very, very grateful to her for everything. Once again, I'm very grateful and thank you for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you, Her Excellency, for your wonderful remarks. I think when you go home, you need to listen to her remarks time and again. One of the things you have noted, whenever we have a speaker from the UN, it is difficult for you to get what they're saying because we speak very slow. We are not public speak. No, it's a compliment because we don't shout at each other in the UN structure. Whenever you see any speeches from the UN people, in the UN structure, we are supposed to be very polite, very gentle, calm, because if UN lose temper, then the world will have no peace. And obviously Simona, my dear friend, she's one woman's army, sorry, not man, one woman's army. I know she will object to remark if I say that she's a one man's army. She has always been there in that Office of Prevention of Genocide. She is so thin and slim because she has so much workload across the world to help prevent genocides and atrocity crime. That's not an easy job to do. Thank you, Simona, once again for being with us. Now, this whole line is full of my friends. I don't know how to introduce them because they have obviously a worldly profile and a friend profile. We have with us the Executive Vice President of International Center for Religion and Diplomacy of DC, my good friend Martin Miller. The Center for Religion and Diplomacy is very important US organization. They don't train ordinary people like me. They train the ministers of some countries. I think India needs some training from you. So train India about democracy and human rights. That will be a great help to us. We are more than happy to facilitate if you want to do that. May I request Martin Miller, Executive Vice President of Center for Religion and Diplomacy, to share her remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am going to abbreviate my sharing today. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I've been looking into the crowd. I've been sitting by dear friends Alice and Dr. Chema, and very, very thankful for all of you. We've known each other for a while. We've crossed the globe together frequently, so very thankful. I am going to abbreviate, and the reason I'm going to abbreviate is I look out and I see all of your faces, and there's so much sharing to happen here today, and I think my voice is not as important as the voices that will speak next, because these are the voices that are experiencing this directly, and you'll understand why I'm going to abbreviate. I'm only going to speak for a moment. I'm going to talk a little bit about the interfaith community coming together as the interfaith community and working toward peaceful solutions to the current dynamics that we're facing in a very abbreviated way. And then I'm going to hand back over because I know our time is running out. Good afternoon. My name is Martine Miller, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy. It's an honor to be here today. It's an honor to stand in solidarity with the Sikh community and the 40th anniversary of the experience of the Sikh community in genocide. So thank you very much for the privilege of being here with you and sharing this day with you. I hold that very close and dear to my heart, so great appreciation for that. We stand here unified by a shared purpose: to honor survivors of violence and to stand in solidarity with those who tirelessly work on the front lines of conflict and peacemaking. Our world today faces an unprecedented challenge, and we all see it. We all feel the weight of that, and oftentimes we feel overwhelmed by what that means for our current situation, the situation of our loved ones, our family, our friends, and how these things might transcend and move forward. From wars and conflicts to the rise of intolerance and hate, creating and deepening identity conflict fault lines by interchangeably using faith, religion, ethnicity, and gender as a means to deepen conflict and to violence within our communities, countries, across regions, within our own families, oftentimes from Burma, where we have dear friends from Burma here with us today, to Yemen, Israel, Palestine, Sudan, to the United States. The need for peace is more pressing than ever. And I think we all feel that on our shoulders today. I think we all flounder a bit on what that might look like. Despite these challenges, we find hope and inspiration in the resilience and determination of those who have endured unimaginable hardships and strive for peace, as is the case of dear friends here today from Burma that are Sai and kind, that are actually staying with us. Their courage reminds us that even in the darkest times, there's light. In the midst of chaos, there's a spring. Our presence here today is more than a gathering. It's a testament to power of unity. By coming together from diverse faith, traditions, and backgrounds, we can transcend the boundaries that divide us. Whether religious, cultural, or ideological, our differences are not obstacles. They are opportunities for deeper understanding, collaboration, and creation. It is through this spirit of unity that we can address the root causes of violence, build a foundation for lasting peace, and innovate an innovative future together. And I'm going to skip the rest of my speech and go to the last page because I much rather hear the voices in this room. In conclusion, I ask us to carry the spirit of this gathering forward into our daily lives. Let us use this sharing today to inspire our actions today, not tomorrow, but today. Let us challenge let us be the change we wish to see in the world by working together with courage, compassion, and unwavering determination. We can create a future where the light of peace shines brightly in every corner. Together, we can create a ripple effect of positive change that reaches far and wide. Thank you for your commitment to peace, for your unwavering support of our diverse family, and for joining together in this sacred mission together. Thank you for this time, and I am privileged to be here and looking forward to hearing the words from all of our friends out in the audience as well.
Thank you, Martin. The request we made to train Indian cabinet and Indian politicians was a serious one. So take that seriously because they are the one who persecute most of us and committing to transnational repression. Yesterday, I was asked that, obviously, whenever there is a congressional briefing or hearing an event, I very passionately talk about the Sikh human rights and Sikh genocide. Yesterday, the kids were asking me, who were sitting at the back, for us, you are just still the kids. Who's going to talk about Sikh genocide because you are conducting it? I said, I have dedicated this responsibility to my younger brother, who happens to be a wonderful doctor of medicine, a psychiatrist, a doctor of psychiatry, Ravi Singh. He needs no introduction. Most of you know him. For me, his younger brother and a youth. He's going to talk about the Sikh persecution and give you a perspective of trauma and also what was faced by the Sikh community when this genocide started. Dr. Ravi Singh.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, distinguished guests, Madam Under Secretary, Ms. Miller. Thank you for not only your touching remarks, but genuine remarks. And I think I was asked to speak about the genocide 40 years ago. But my spiritual nature, my philosophy on how we were raised and how we're rooted asked me not to just talk about us. This is a universal, it's a human truth. So in practice, I am a child psychiatrist. And by profession, not only did I learn about the human body and the human brain, but also the interactions of the human mind and thought. Experience and how that belief systems, how that generates our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So I get to experience that on a visceral level every day as I see kids who have not only suffered in trauma in various forms, some have traveled across the world to seek sanctuary here, but I'm also one of them. Personally, experiencing that trauma through myself as a child, as coming to seek refuge here in this country, as well as, our family, my parents. They left their physicians left their practice serving people there, as I do here, to come make a safer, better place for us here. So I think it's important to understand why persecution takes place. What are the ingredients of persecution? And you guys have shed light on some of these things. But it's at the very basic level, what happens to an individual so they can create these acts of atrocity, right? It is the dehumanization of a people, is calling people other when they're not. And these ingredients of persecution are also thereby authoritarian leadership, economic burdens or concerns, and acquiring more physical, materialistic wealth. And as these ingredients continue to percolate in the world, spiritually, our forefathers, really our gurus, understood what the antidote was. And that symbolically exists not only on today, but the buildings which were attacked during the genocide and what they symbolically understood for and they stand for. The Darbar Sahib complex, which is also known to the other world as the Golden Temple, for us is the Harimandir Sahib, has the central building within the Akal Takht, which is the supreme throne and seat of the Sikh political and spiritual empire. But if you look into the design and architecture, our thought process and philosophy is percolated to every brick of that structure. The structure was created at a lower level than the city of limits to highlight the aspect of humility, that may we all be humble. Anybody that enters the 4 doors for all castes, creed, culture, color, no matter your religious denomination, you are walking through those doors and experiencing that humility and connection. The house of worship there, which is the Darbar Sahib, is created on a pool of water, and it signifies the lotus flower, which in many other faiths and communities, it lives in the world of materialistic wealth and all the negative aspects of the world, but it's yet flourishing because it's connected and deep-rooted to the divine power that exists. So when we visit those places of worship, we are reminded of that. The Akal Takht, which faces slightly to the side of the Darbar Sahib, has its importance of political strength and spiritual strength, which we call Midi and Bidi, which is spiritual and temporal powers. And our gurus understood the importance of being a voice for the voiceless, being able to speak for the people that cannot speak for themselves, and also ensuring there is prosperity for all. There's common social welfare, and every day, even today, over 100,000 people come there to have a free meal. And those values are emulated and shared across the world, anywhere Sikhs exist. So what is the impact of trauma? What is the impact of persecution? Not only have I witnessed it and I see it, what drives our thought process in medicine is evidence-based. It's research. It's randomized controlled trials, a gold standard way of thinking and understanding to then implement measures that are most astounding to an individual. And what the data says, and these are landmark studies that I'm going to cite briefly, that are here done in the United States of America. The CDC did a study called the ACE study, which is Adverse Childhood Events. And they did a score of the number of adverse events, the risk level, and what that meant for an individual. And what they found is Well, if a child was a part of a family that went through domestic violence, substance abuse through a parent, or experienced mental health concerns, parents with mental health concerns, they're in social adverse situations. As the score increased, they saw a direct correlation with physical health, their risk for diabetes, blood pressure, substance abuse has significantly by many-fold increases. Their risk for substance use, depression, and mental health concerns are increasing. So the impact of trauma is not just on the day of the trauma, it continues to percolate and vasculate. And I see a lot of heads because I know you guys have witnessed this yourselves. And I want to be a voice for you. And not only does it affect the body, there's some studies that show that it affects the DNA within the individual. And so if you think about that, the DNA that is passed down from generation to generation, those DNA structures are turned on and off. So that seems like a very dire circumstance. But our faith and our tradition teaches us otherwise. That where we capture our resilience and our strength from those buildings of symbolism that I've shared, for justice for all, social betterment, really the key importance here that I want to leave today is what we're seeing today is connection. Connection is the most important word I want to underscore. It is important and vital to understand this because connection, from the moment you're born, you are wired by your brain evolutionarily to connect. The moment you are born, they put you on your mom's chest. That's called the golden hour. That moment where oxytocin is flowing in your body, that creates that deep connection, feeling of safety, feeling of oneness. That connection, that same mechanism of connection that you are born with is the same connection, I would say, is that we use to bond with each other, that we can share our pain, but more importantly, that's the connection you connect with the Creator with as well. And for me, this is not something new. It's something I was born with and grew up with. But I want to give you that point of resilience and point of connection that as long as we continue to connect, as we are doing today, and how fitting is it to do this in a country, the preamble of the United States Constitution, as Congressman Costa said, is we the people. That preamble aligns with the Sikh values, with all the values discussed today, the UN, as well as all the faith leaders present today. I want to conclude by a call to action. And you guys have heard of the term transnational repression. The trauma that continues to propagate even on other soil. And I think the call to action is we ensure from the United States perspective that does not continue. Because trauma happens once, but it's continued to be re-experienced, which makes it as ever new as it was before. It doesn't go away. But for healing to occur, for safety to be done and protected, you need that safe environment where you can feel safe. So I think TNR legislation and policy should be enacted. On an international level, I agree with Madam Undersecretary, prevention, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. And I'm validating that as a physician to you, right? Because that is true. If you can prevent trauma, if trauma can cease to exist, I think that is the dream of every Sikh, of every individual in this room. So I gratefully thank you, bottom of my heart and full of gratitude. And I want to end with a prayer that every Sikh says twice a day. Nanak naam chardi kala, tere pani sarbat da pala, which is asking for that, connect to that Creator, connect to that life source energy. You will be an everlasting optimism. And with your grace, may there be betterment for all. That's what Sikhs pray for every day, twice a day. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Very well reflected, Ravi. Thank you for that wonderful reflection. Talking about trauma, Obviously, we have a limited time. Just quick one, my own experience to trauma of the Sikh genocide. Obviously, I wasn't in Indian side of Punjab. I was living in Pakistan on Pakistani side of Punjab. I was a child living in Lahore, which is a border city to India. And that's why I have put this narrative that Sikh genocide didn't finish in 1984. It lasted for a whole decade. So I'm talking about 94, 95, when genocide and extrajudicial killing was at the peak. I was just a child living in Lahore with my parents, and my father was very keen social worker. So those days, River Ravi, which flows from India to Pakistan, we had flooding because India used to flood the river, and water came to Pakistani side and flooded it. I, with my eyes, have seen those torn dead bodies of the Sikhs, which were not identifiable, which were tortured and ceremoniously dumped into water of Ravi, which traveled all the way from India and reached Pakistan. There was nobody there to perform their burial. So I've seen those dead bodies, and they are still in my eyes all the time. That's why I always very passionately talk about the Sikh genocide. You haven't seen those bodies, but I have seen as a child. That will stay with me till the day I meet my Lord. That was the Sikh genocide, and that's the trauma we will carry if there is no closure to it. As Ravi said, when we talk about we the people, UN Charter starts we the people of United Nations. But people are becoming irrelevant these days to politicians and to United Nations. I regret to say, we need to bring the people back to this house and to the United Nations Charter. As we were talking about Pakistan, we have the first very Sikh minister for religious minorities in the province of Punjab, Pakistan, Ramesh Arora, who is from our community, and he has taken the role of the Minister for Interfaith Harmony and religious minorities in Pakistan. Pakistan is a very important country when it comes to, because USERF has tagged Pakistan as a country of particular concern, like India for religious freedom and minorities persecution. So we thought it's better to have Mr. Arora and have some assurances from him about the protection of minorities. Just one more point, if I hope Mr. Arora is listening. One of the issue about the transnational repression, and as I spoke last year in February about transnational repression, it's not about just murdering people or kidnapping them. It is also depriving them from their cultural heritage. When Darbar Sahib was attacked, it is not that Akal Takht Sahib, the temporal seat of the Sikhs, was brought down. The Sikh relics were also plundered, Madam Under Secretary General. 40 years ago, the Sikh relics were taken by Indian Army. Imagine the relics now in Kaaba or Makkah or in elsewhere who are revered to Christian, who have been touched by the saints or by the prophets, have been plundered by somebody, and they are not returned even today. So that was a cultural plunder as well. Most of men here, they cannot go and practice their faith in Harmandir Sahib, because Indian government will not allow them to be back at their revered place. Imagine if a Christian can't go to Vatican. Imagine if a Muslim can't go to Makkah to perform Hajj. How would that feel to us? That is the pain of this community. Hence, we request you that we should use all channels, including this Congress, including the UN, to ensure that people have the free right to practice their faith and to visit the places of their worship. It's not a political matter, and it is not for the governments to decide. It's everyone's right. We have the examples where you have polarized Iran and Saudi Arabia, but no Muslim has ever been denied from Iran to visit Makkah in Saudi Arabia to perform pilgrimage. That should be the model for the government of India, to ensure that people and the Sikhs and everyone else has the right to practice their faith freely. Now we have a person from a land where this faith was born. This faith was born in Punjab in Pakistan, where Guru Nanak, the founder of this faith, formed this faith. He is Minister for Religion, Religious Minorities and Interfaith Harmony, Mr. Ramesh Singh Arora. Arora Sahib, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think I am audible to everyone. Do let me know if I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh. Let me read one verse from Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Tera Pana Meetha Lage, Har Naam Padarat Nanak Mange. So this month, the month of June, has a very great significance when we talk about the Sikh Panth, because the Sikh Panth, the Sikh Jagat is celebrating the martyrdom day of Shaheed Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj Shahidi. And this month has its own historic significance, because we do call it the 6th June is the Black Day in the history of Sikhism, because that is the day when the Indian forces attacked on Akal Takht Sahib and not only destroyed the building of Akal Takht Sahib, rather they destroyed the sentiments of the entire Sikh Jagat. Either they are residing in Amritsar, in India, in Pakistan, or any corner of the world. So they have destroyed the sentiments of the Sikh community. And still, if we talk about today, the trauma of that Operation Blue Star is there, because that was the day when Indian forces attacked Akal Takht Sahib, and those who were there to pay their homage to Shri Akal Takht Sahib, to Harmandir Sahib, the innocent Sikh children, Sikh infants, and not only the Sikh, those who were the devotees, young women, old age people, likewise the youth, they were there to celebrate the martyrdom day of Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj, and that was the day when Indian forces attacked and destroyed everything. I really appreciate the American Sikh Caucus and the California Assembly, because we are going to celebrate 40th, should I call it, it's not an anniversary, but this is the Black Day, and with your support, we are here to talk about that genocide where hundreds of thousands innocent people were killed by the Indian forces, and we are still looking forward. We are waiting for the justice. We are waiting for the justice from the Supreme Court of India. We are waiting for the justice. Nation is still waiting for the justice from the Indian government. Although, because I'm a politician, I'm a member of the Punjab Assembly, and I'm a minister as well, and I'm also heading the Pakistan Sikh Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee as a Mukh Sabadar, as a president. So every time we stand up, we strongly believe on peace. We strongly believe on coexistence. We strongly believe on social justice. But the other counterpart residing in India, they are, you can say, despite of the demand of the Sikh nation, they are unable to give us the justice. But still, we hope that the Indian Supreme Court, that the Indian government one day will come when they will give justice to the Sikh nation. And I also request to the United Nations and to the human rights activists, to the human rights organizations that come forward and do support us to give justice to the Sikh nation. And I really appreciate Dr. Iqtidar Chima. Every time he's there, who is voice of the Sikh nation, either in UK or US or Pakistan, wherever we talk about, Dr. Iqtidar Chima is always there. So I strongly give my sincere appreciation to Dr. Pritpal Singh Ji, who always has a great voice, and he always try to bring Sikh nation on one platform. And as long as Pakistan is concerned, let me tell you the audience that in numbers, we are very few in Pakistan. The number is not more than 15 to 20,000 when we talk about the Sikh community, but the rights we enjoy here are tremendous, and we are considered here as a privileged minority. Let me tell you, today there was a budget session going on, and the Chief Minister of Punjab, on my demand, allocated 188% budget above than the last year. So this is how the minority is treated in Pakistan. The constitution of my country says that every citizen of the state is equal. That's why the minority living in Pakistan, they enjoy the rights, and opening of Kartarpur corridor is a great example. Because I just heard that the California Assembly, the American Sikh Caucus, and some other organizations, they're struggling that there must be a free access to the Amritsar. But we have already opened it. The opening of Kartarpur corridor means that we are opening the worship places for everyone now, the devotees. from Indian side, they come on the daily basis to Kartarpur Sahib, they pay their homage, and we do have arrangement for more than 5,000 devotees. They can come, they can stay. And the other day I gave a suggestion, a recommendation to the Prime Minister of Pakistan that rather to open it dawn to dusk, we must open Kartarpur corridor for the devotees for 24 hours, so they can come early in the morning and they can spend the entire day, 24 hours. They can spend here, they can stay here, and they can do their worship, they can do their prayer. So they have ample time to stay here in Kartarpur Sahib. And because every Sikh prays 2 times in a day to visit Gurdwara Nankana Sahib and other Gurdwaras in Pakistan. So Government of Pakistan has already opened the Kartarpur corridor. Last but not the least, let me tell you one more good thing. Like in 2018, the Punjab Assembly of Pakistan, they passed Sikh Marriage Act. And Dr. Chima, we spoke so many times about this, about the rules of business. The Sikh Marriage Act must be implemented in letter spirit after passage by the Punjab Assembly. So that Dr. Chima and other audience, let me tell you with a great joy that the Cabinet of Punjab has passed the rules of business. So now we are going to implement the Sikh Marriage Act in next couple of months, and it's almost passed by the Cabinet. So by July, it will be on ground. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak with the audience and the dignitaries who are here. Thank you very much from my side.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh Arora sir, for your wonderful remarks and to be with us virtually today. Many of you don't understand that working for minorities in every country is difficult, whether that's India, whether that's Pakistan. And I've heard the good news that Pakistan is now passing the Sikh Marriage Act, which is not yet implemented in India. Sikhs are, for years, never had a Marriage Act implemented in India. Their marriages were registered under Hindu Marriage Act because Indian Constitution Article 25 2B interprets Sikhs as turban-wearing Hindus. And that's why they never had their personal laws. That's what the Sikhs have been struggling for the last 80 years, that they are not Hindus, they are Sikhs, they have their religious identity, they shouldn't be amalgamated. But they have been amalgamated. So now we have limited time, and I have a couple of speakers from the minority communities who's going to reflect about the minority persecution. So I have to be really quick. First of all, I would like to invite Reverend Canon Dr. Joshua Jones, who was here with us in 2015 as well, when our co-chair of the caucus, Patrick Mehan, was there. He invited him to speak here when Prime Minister Modi was also visiting. We want to give a round of applause to Congressman Patrick Mehan as well, who has been a wonderful voice for all of us and always facilitated things for us. May I have now Canon Reverend Dr. Joshua John, who's going to talk about the Christian persecution in the South Asian region. Joshua Johns.
Thank you, Kima. I think we'll see a few pictures and I'll finish in 5 minutes. You gave me 7 minutes. I'll finish in 5 minutes. And it's a privilege and honor for me to be invited by the American Sikh Caucus Committee to be part of this prayer for peace, and also co-chairs and also Madam General Secretary. The talk was very impressive, and also viewers. Thank you for that. I share profound sadness, solidarity, and support to Sikh communities, as many would remember the unfortunate and unpardonable operations in the Golden Temple 40 years ago. My son-in-law is from a Sikh community, so it's a quite interesting part of our interfaith family we are now. And it's quite good to learn by Gurudev every time you get here in our family as well, as a welcoming and joyful words. Today, I'm here to speak against the ideologies of hatred, myths of fears, systematic oppression, using ignorance, polarization, and violence against minorities in the subcontinent. And I'm not against Indian government. Last time they banned me in public to speak in public when I came here. They said, we will withdraw your Indian citizenship. That's fine. And they also said they will not allow me to speak in public, but they have withdrawn everything. And for me, peace without justice is not peace. Justice without peace and values, responsibility is not justice either. So I like to stand, of course, in solidarity with every one of you here as minorities. We share the common pain and experience in India and elsewhere. And I also, I'm part of my job now is to promote leaders, train leaders to promote peace. And Christians in India are targeted, marginalized, persecuted just because we promote, advocate certain values to a national building. I'd like to show the first picture, please. And 6 Dalit women were arrested for celebrating birthday celebrations because many in the margins get awareness and raise the voices against oppression due to Christian contribution to education, development, and oppressors using conversion myth attack Christians. That means we educate everybody, marginalized. When they rise up and stand against the caste system, stand against the oppression, they blame us and they say we have converted them. Actually, since 2011, 2024, the percentage remains the same, 2.7, according to their own government statistics. And where the conversion story is, yeah, that's very interesting. Using the myths, they put every Christian, and there are 531 attacks in 2023, just using that myth, conversion myth in India. And you can see the 6 women, Dalit women, who just celebrated birthday and they sang happy birthday song. The police came and you sang Christian music there and they put them in jail and still they are not out yet. Still the lawyers are fighting to get them out. So please move to the second picture if I may. I'll be a little quick. So I have given the paper with all the evidences. If you want to read it, please take a look at it. And minorities falsely accused by hate groups and caused deaths, and 648 arrests on the basis of false accusation, and 550 cases in 2023, and 40 still are in the prison. I work with the lawyers, network of lawyers, human rights lawyers, Christian lawyers in India and elsewhere, and we still fight these cases there. And we are still not able to get, and we stand together as minorities together in order to fight these many of these false accusations of not only conversion but also what you call love jihad. I hope you know the story behind the love jihad. And some of these myths are created by these hate groups, and we still are fighting on this. Please, I like to use this story. My colleague, Father Stan Swami, we used to work together in favor of Dalit groups in Bangalore, and Stan Swami was arrested 2 years ago, and in spite of his COVID, they put him in the prison, and he died in the prison. And they falsely manipulated his email against him, and they used the same email against him in the court. They typed the email. The NIA, National Intelligence Agency, typed his email, and they used the same email against him and put him in the prison. And he died in the court, in the prison, because of the COVID. And the judge, after his death, he apologized for putting him in the prison and not giving him bail. And because all myth and accusation, on the basis of lies, they use this thing. And that's not only against Christians. I'm just using it as an example against many of the minorities in India, sadly. Please move to the next picture, please. And also now they have closed down 900 Christian institutions by not allowing them foreign currency remittance account. And we ourselves run 6 disability schools, and the young children cannot go to school. Many of the schools have to be closed because we don't receive support. Of course, the government gives the salary of the, the teachers, but we support the children, their food and everything, accommodation to schools, but many of them have to be closed down. If they do it, we are happy. They don't do it to these things, but they are not letting us to do either. This is what we are trying to plead the government, the foreign currency account. If they do not find anything wrong, please say to us straight. We'll follow that rules. Please, next one, please. And creating violence for political ends. I will not speak about it because my colleague, my friend will speak about it, about Manipur. And 246 churches were destroyed in 36 hours. Just 36 hours. Please, next one, please. And we lament and plead. You stand in solidarity with us in our actions. That's what we ask for. We lament and plead. Please be with us and show your solidarity. We wanted the country of India, of course I am national feeling, but I want it to be designed as a country of concern, special concern. Yes. And also I wanted to reclassify, last time when I spoke, BHP and Prajantal was included in the extremist group. We wanted the Ardas also to be included in the extremist group. And we like to see the ethical business, the values, investment should be attached to values of human rights. And it should be practiced. And also visa and employment declaration to come to anyone who comes to US should be declared that they are not a member of these extremist groups. And also I like to say the restriction of public speeches. Many of the leaders who speak hate speeches in India should not be allowed to speak in US or anywhere. And investigation of US RSS connection should be investigated, and funding of any hatred groups should be identified. If the funds are used for hatred purposes, they should not be allowed to raise funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Canon Reverend Dr. Joshua Jones. Your title keep increasing, man. I can't keep track of it. But thank you very much for this wonderful presentation and to be here with us. I just want to remind you that in 2015, we had hearing at the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, where both me and Joshua testified on India. And a letter was handed over to then visiting Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, raising the concern about RSS and all of that. We have with us Mr. Anthony Baines, who represent the Baha'i community in the United States. Baha'is are a very peaceful, small in numbers community in the world, but they are persecuted in Iran and Yemen. While we are talking about persecution of everyone else, we thought it's important for us to hear how Baha'is are persecuted. Mr. Baines, please.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you very much. And it's really an honor to be here today, especially given that such a dramatic anniversary is being observed and commemorated. As our chairman said just now, the Baha'i community is relatively small. We're about 7 million people in the world. The faith originated in Iran in the middle of the 19th century. Today, there are about 300,000 Baha'is in Iran, and they constitute the largest non-Muslim religious minority in the country. Now, from the beginning of the Baha'i faith in the middle of the 19th century, there was tremendous persecution. Roughly somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 Baha'is were killed between 1848 and 1852. Since that time, there's been sporadic persecution. But with the 1979 revolution, Islamic Revolution, persecution became state policy and it became systematized. So during the next 20 years, there were over 200 Baha'is who were actually executed by the Iranian government. Thousands were put into prison. Anyone who was employed by the government lost his job. Private sector employers were pressured to dismiss Baha'is. And the community was excluded from the country's system of higher education. Now, the last time a Baha'i was executed in Iran was 1998. The last time a Baha'i died at the hands of the government directly was in 2005. A Baha'i died in prison. But the official policy of the government has become much more systematic, much more measured, but designed to actually marginalize and eliminate the Baha'i community as a viable entity in Iran. So some of the things that actually occur include I should update you with the situation today. Today, there are about 70 Baha'is in prison. There are another 1,200 in Iran, and there are another 1,200 who are not in prison, but who are at some point in the criminal justice system, either from initial arrest all the way to final appeal and sentencing. Between August of 2022 and March of this year, there were over 600 incidents of persecution of the Baha'is. They included arrests, house raids, interrogations, beatings, confiscation of property, sentencings, and the closures of small businesses and the denial of higher education to Baha'i youth. Now, Baha'is are also this year completing 11 months of commemorating an incident that occurred on June 18th of 1983 in the city of Shiraz, where 10 women aged 17 to 57 were hanged by the Iranian government, either because they did things like taught Baha'i children's classes to Baha'i children or served on a Baha'i administrative institution. These 10 women, in some sense, are a precursor to what began in September of 2022, when Gina Mahsa Amini was killed by the authorities, and there were tremendous demonstrations that began in Iran that centered on the human rights of women. In fact, there's a campaign that is going on with the hashtag #OurStoryIsOne that shows that there's a relationship between what happened in 1983 to these 10 Baha'i women and the oppression of women generally in Iran, and what culminated in this tremendous upheaval that began in September of 2022 that was triggered by the killing of Mahsa Amini. Now, with all of the difficulties that are faced, I just thought that I'd end with something that was optimistic, because we're hearing so much today that is pessimistic. And I'll just say briefly that 30 years ago, if you were to ask the average Iranian on some street in Tehran, what do you think of the Baha'is? That person would say, oh, they're spies of Israel, they're spies of the United States, they're anti-Islamic, and they carry out all sorts of immoral practices. Today, if you were to ask a person on the streets of Tehran, what do you think of the Baha'is? The response is likely to be, oh, it's too bad what's happened to them. Now, there are several reasons for that. One, that change, let me just finish up, and I'll just list them very briefly. One is the effectiveness of the internet and the ability to get accurate information. Another is a couple of Nobel laureate lawyers who are Iranians who have defended Baha'is. A third has to do with a statement by one of the former chief, the number 2 to the Ayatollah Khomeini, saying that Baha'is couldn't be accepted within Iran as Muslims, but they were citizens and should be given the rights of citizens. And there have been statements from the diaspora of intellectuals, artists, and others that have supported the Baha'is. So what has turned, and of course the peacefulness of the Baha'i community, despite extreme provocation, has resulted in this change of attitude. So I'm saying all of this just to say that there is hope, that there are conditions under which things can improve, and that even though we're oppressed minorities, there are things that we can do to facilitate the improvement of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm very conscious of the time, and we have limited time and we have to conclude. I still have 2 more speakers. So I'm very grateful to all of you for your patience listening, but we won't be here and we won't keep you for long. I know it has been a very busy afternoon for all of you. Everyone was busy, and especially the young people who have been campaigning here at the Hill for the last 3 days. I think some of them are yawning, so stay alarmed. We just got 2 more speakers. As you are aware that when we talk about the persecution, we always talk about Rohingya persecution in our congressional briefings in the past, because Rohingya Muslims have faced persecution, acts of genocide. Rohingyas are the biggest community of stateless people. Most of Rohingyas are stateless because no state is willing to take them into their state. We have with us from the Rohingya community, Sister Sharifa Shakira, who runs the Rohingya Women Development Network here in the United States. I would request her to be precise, brief, but she will reflect about Rohingya persecution. Round of applause.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I feel the pain for the Sikh people. My heartfelt condolence and thoughts for the Sikh genocide for 40 years now. With that, let me remind you about Rohingya genocide that been taking place. It started in about 1978. And now I'm gonna turn next month 30 years old. So you can imagine that the genocide been taking place since then and it still continue. At the age of 5, I was forced to leave my country, cross the borders illegally, and seek refuge in Malaysia for 21 years, where I live very discriminative refugee life. It's not easy, and often we see that issues in Burma are not getting better. When I see my people until today been trafficked, been abused, I can relate how Brother Ravi was talking about the trauma, and the trauma never go away. And when he say that trauma does transfer, like, get into the DNA, I thought about my kids. I don't want them to feel the pain that I had. It's not nice. Yes, it is true. Every day when we see the news or get a call from our relatives, we relive all the pain all over again. It is really, really real. With that, the world heard about Rohingya in 2012, 2015, and 17, where the huge numbers of Rohingya fled from my land, Arakan, where I was born, and crossed the borders to Bangladesh, which make more than 1.1 million refugees are living in the Bangladesh. After that, we have not heard much about Rohingya, what happened with them. Let me tell you, since last month, May 2024, over 200,000 Rohingya was displaced from where I was born in Arakan. Their houses been burned down. Their men been arrested again, just the way the stories that we've been hearing in 2012. It's happening again and again. This time is worse because they are not allowed to cross the borders to Bangladesh. They were kept inside. 2 weeks ago, 27 people were killed between the Bangladesh and Burma while they're trying to flee to the Bangladesh. And it's happening again and again. It never stopped. And as we know, the state have recognized Rohingya genocide about 2 years ago. And we really need, not just about recognition, but the action and resolutions. We need the genocide perpetrators to hold accountable. And today I would like to request all of you to stand solidarity with Rohingya causes. One thing you can do is by keep talking about us, tell the world that Rohingya exists, and it's real. Genocide is still taking places. So I will be around. I don't have much time to talk, but if you have any questions or any information or anything you would like to ask me, I will be around. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sharifa Shakira. When we talk about Myanmar or Burma, we think everyone in Myanmar or Burma is against Rohingya. That's not the case. When there is an autocratic, authoritarian regime, it actually suppresses its own people. Whatever ethnicity, religion they are not spared. So we have Sai, who's an artist from Myanmar, actually. He had come all the way from Myanmar. He has very brief time, but he's going to share the story of atrocities in Myanmar, which will give you an idea that it's not a religion which stands against other religion. It is autocracy. It is dictatorship. It is certain trends of the politician in their mind, which leads to atrocity crimes. Sai, the floor is yours for a very brief time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll very cut to the chase because of the time limitation. May peace be with you all. This is something that we don't have in Burma, or personal happiness, or religious freedom, or justice. And I'm the son of one of the 27,000 political prisoners from Burma. My father, a democratically elected chief minister of Shan State, was abducted, tortured, and sentenced to 20 years of hard labor in solitary confinement by military's kangaroo court. I'm an only child born out of a blue-collar family, and as much as I want to be with my family and my parents, they can be killed by the junta anytime, even by this very minute. 27,000 political prisoners face similar fates, enduring inhumane conditions and brutal treatments and extrajudicial executions. By accepting my death and running for my life for 244 days, on October 2021, I escaped Burma to advocate for the release of political prisoners and have collaborated with activists worldwide. It took me 3 years to deliver the speech, as I just got here without any institutionals or government support. International community's response has been insufficient and quite disappointing. I stand here before you to shed light on the severe persecution based on faith, religion, race, and ideology occurring in Burma. Since the coup on February 1st, 2021, the military juntas had unleashed an unprecedented campaign of violence and oppression against the people of Burma, targeting various ethnic, religious minorities, as well as supporters of federal democracy. The Rohingya Muslim community have been faced brutal atrocities, including mass killings, rape, and forced displacement. Latest development is that they are forcibly conscripted by the Myanmar military regime as one of the military's tactics. And these tactics, which have been described as genocidal, aim to erase their identity and existence. These acts is not new to Burma junta, as they have long been committing atrocity upon all ethnic groups. The Christian, Kachin, Karen, and Chin community have also been subjected to systematic attacks, with churches destroyed and worshippers persecuted. And Burma is home to diverse ethnic groups, and many of whom have suffered decades of marginalization and violence. And many other people, including Shan, Rakhine people, have experienced relentless military offenses, resulting in countless casualties and displacements. So this indiscriminate violence signifies that Burma junta kills everyone indiscriminately and inhumanly. And it also includes the women, children, and LGBT individuals. So one thing that I would like to recommend for personal recommendations for the Congress is basically, number first is demand the release of political prisoners, and demand the immediate release of 27,000 political prisoners in Burma. And second is protection of Burma nationals. Action is to ensure the protection of all Burma nationals within U.S. territory and advocate for similar protections in other countries, including and especially neighboring countries. And last but not least is international diplomacy and release of Burma sovereign funds. Action is to release the $1 billion in Burma sovereign funds held in the U.S. for the NUG ethnic resistance organizations and civil societies to use for humanitarian assistance and to build government's capacity. And that will be all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a mockery of international system. A country where human rights have been violated. Someone got Nobel Peace Prize, and she was very reluctant to speak about the genocide of a community. That which concerns me, and about the international system. How could be you so complacent that you have a Nobel Peace Prize and under your good government, people have been committed to genocide? That was just a passing reference. Now, Mark is very wise. Mark Ming is from the Manipur. He's with us. He's a wonderful faith leader. He's from the for the Manipuri community. He's going to be our last speaker from the minority group talking about the persecution. So we won't hold you here for long. Then we have a note of thanks from the American Sikh Caucus Committee. And I have a very important and special announcement for you, which I'm holding on to. So wait for that till the end.
Thank you for being a voice of the voiceless. Thank you for having me here. I am a chaplain, a hospice chaplain in South Jersey, and I'm here to listen to your story. 40 years, genocide in India. 40 years is my lifetime. My heart and calling is to cry with you and listen to you, but unfortunately, many have passed. Many are not here in this room, and thank you for some of you who are here. In fact, June 13 is a day when thousands of mobs and also the Manipur state forces came and started burning the church. On 12, they started, and on 13, it rained, so they took shelter in the churches. They partied, they got drunk, they desecrated the place of worship. It's called Kamen Log incident. There was a bloodbath that took place. What a coincidence it is. On the 3rd, I was doing my hospice round and see videos and pictures of churches burned, one after the other. And my surrounding villages was burned on the 4th, and on the 5th, my cousin and 3 others were killed by the Manipur state forces defending my village. And thank God my village is still standing. Sometimes people say, is it religious? Is it ethnic? Is it genocide? I tell them it's everything. You know, the Indian government or the Manipur government will dictate on us what kind of persecution it was. But thank you, all of you, being a voice for us. We are minorities of the minorities, I'll put myself. I think we are less than a million people in Manipur itself. But thank you for giving me this platform, and thank you for being there for us. I feel like I'm being restored and a lot of healing's taking place. So thank you so much, leaders.
So the announcement first, before I request Jasjeet Hundal to say some word of wisdom and thank you all on behalf of American Sikh Caucus Committee. Tomorrow we have a historic day. The house tomorrow will open. When I say house, that means House of Representative, not my house, not your house, but House of Representative, where you are at the moment, will open with a Sikh prayer. So tomorrow a Sikh chaplain will open the house in front of all congressmen and senators in this house would hear the Sikh prayer. That is very significant for our community, although it's second time, but I think that is very symbolic when it comes to Sikh identity, when it comes to really presenting our tribute to those who have given their lives for the Sikh faith and the martyrs of other faiths. So on this historic occasion, I would request all of you, we have already distributed the event program amongst all of you to be here with us. That will be in the capital. Whosoever is going to go, they're going to pray and open the house will be in the gallery. So that's a very significant event tomorrow. I just want to bring it to your attention, although most of you know it already. May I now request Mr. Hundal, who's an entrepreneur from New Jersey, to thank you all on behalf of, yes.
One thing to add to what you announced.
Sure.
After prayer.
Yeah.
Room 120.
Sure.
There is a remembrance service.
Yeah.
With several congressmen.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, that's why I said we have distributed that on our invitation card. It's given there. But thanks for adding that to our information. Mr. Hundal, for a note of thanks. I know you are a very eloquent man. You can speak for long, but being somebody who know quality assurance, you know how to control the time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. In American terminology, it would be succinct. So we'll keep it succinct this afternoon. We heard a lot about remembrance and reflection today, about an event that occurred 40 years ago that has still left an impact on Sikhs throughout the world. And as people were speaking today, and going back to the events of June 4, 1984, I want to share with you my own personal memory that came back on that day. I was a small boy or a young man in Kansas watching what was happening to the Sikh people in Punjab. And I could not imagine what the Indian Army was doing, and that all news had been stopped from that, our homeland of Punjab. We lived in a multi-generational home. My own grandmother, who faced partition and the pain of partition, couldn't imagine what was happening to the holiest of holy places for Sikhs at one of the most holy and pious days of the Sikh calendar, when pilgrims from around Punjab and around India were in the Darbar Sahib. That moment of pain and suffering that Indian government that has still not yet given justice to the Sikhs is still with us today. And that's the reason why we have gathered today. I will never forget it on a personal level. Our Sikh Panth, our Sikh faith will never forget it at a common and religious level. And for all of you, the religious leaders who came here today, we know that all faiths say in our faith, the term is Ek Pita Ekas Ke Hum Barak. We are of one God, one unified humanity. However, we have seen what we've talked about today is what that unified humanity can do to its fellow brother. That vengeful attitude of humans placing other humans below them is still something we see today, whether it's in Sudan, whether it's with the Rohingya, or whether it's in Gaza. We see it on a daily basis. We look at ourselves, we reflect that we are not living at the moment of Ek Pita Ekas Ke Hum Barak. We've come here today so we can help one another come closer and come truer to that life of Ek Pita Ekas Ke Hum Barak. That is on us. The onus is on each of us to work together to a better world, a better humanity. And we should all know that when we come in a place like this, we are in a very political place. We are all very religious people. We all like to believe, want to separate religion in the US, at least separate religion from politics, but it cannot be. One of the areas which we haven't, one of the communities we haven't talked about today, even though the Rohingya came up, is a Uyghur community. They face it in China in the same way as the Sikhs have faced it, in continuous termination. It is upon us to work together hand in hand. We talk about the pain that we afflict, and we are overwhelmed by that pain within ourselves. We, the Sikh community, ask each of you to help us do the same things that you've asked. The Indian community from 1984 to today has not stopped. A year ago, a Sikh freedom fighter, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, was assassinated in Canada. The US government, the DOJ, has filed an indictment against a Sikh freedom fighter here in against the Indian agent for assassinating a Sikh on American soil for his fighting for his human rights. And that same DOJ has said that there's additional identified individuals which the Indian government would like to assassinate around the world who strive for the human rights of Sikhs. Whatever legislation can be passed by the US Congress, and we know it's a very divided Congress, we urge the support of each of you to help us do that. The kind of resolution that Assemblywoman Baines mentioned out in California, that should definitely become one of record here at the US Congress as well. We urge each of you to ask your congressperson to support that resolution in the future when it comes up. I can tell you it will be coming up for proposal later on in 1984. On behalf of the Sikh community, I want to thank each of the representatives of the various faiths, the leaders of the United Nations. You've all eloquently spoken about your shared brotherhood and pain with the Sikh community on this eventful day, which is still a moment of tragedy that Sikhs feel around the world. On behalf of each Sikh here, I want to thank all of you. I urge all of the congresspersons who are here today to continue to stay tuned with the Sikhs in the United States and their diasporic leaders around the world who face transnational repression. We need each of your congresspersons' support for all of them to play a leadership role so we can remain secure and free to practice our religions here in the United States, around the world. Once again, a sincere thank you note to all of you who came today. Dr. Chima has already given you the event for tomorrow, and we urge each of you to come to the event tomorrow. Once again, a sincere note of thanks to all of you and your heartfelt appreciation for your soulful feelings that you expressed today. Thank you very much.
Well, although the note of thanks has been delivered, but all the speakers, they thank each other and the panelists, but nobody thanks the audience. So I thank all of you from this panel for your wonderful attendance on this very warm day and to be here with us. As has been said already, tomorrow, Congressman Dan Newhouse has sponsored the Sikh prayer, followed by which we will have a commemoration reception. It's 9 a.m. in the morning, the prayer, which would be again here in the house and at house room number H122. So same procedure. It's just you need to come a bit early for that. We will have various members of Congress reflecting tomorrow as well, because our commemoration events were split into two parts. Today we had interfaith prayer and we have reflections from the oppressed communities. Tomorrow, House will open with the Sikh prayer, followed by certain reflections by some of the congressmen tomorrow. Thank you very much to all of you for being here with us today, especially the young people who have been lobbying for you. Round of applause for them, who have been here at the Hill in this swear summer for the last 3-4 days talking about their persecution. They are our future. And Madam Under Secretary General, very many thanks once again to coming all the way from New York. From your heavy schedule. I think she always put a schedule on a side when we request her to be with us. Martin Miller, we couldn't have done it without her. She is so supportive to our cause. And I think I will re-emphasize, train Indian ministers as you train many other. So they know a bit more about human rights to make the situation better. Thank you all.
As always.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਪ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ from American Sikh Caucus Committee ਅੱਜ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਤੇ 13 ਜੂਨ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੀ ਹਮਾਇਤ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਧਰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ, ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਆਇਡੈਂਟੀਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ, ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ, ਮੈਂਬਰ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ, ਅਸੈਂਬਲੀ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਫਰੋਮ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਜਸਮੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਬੈਂਸ ਤੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਰਮੇਸ਼ ਸਿੰਘ ਅਰੋੜਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਬੜੇ ਮਾਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਨੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ 40 ਸਾਲਾ ਸਾਥੀ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰਣ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਘਟਨਾ ਹੋਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਨਾ ਹੋ, ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਾਰਟਿਸਿਪੇਟ ਕੀਤਾ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਮਦਰਦੀ ਜਤਾਈ ਅਤੇ ਯਕੀਨ ਦਵਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਯਤਨ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਕਿ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਕੋਈ ਅਜਿਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੁਰਘਟਨਾ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਘਟੇ। ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਯਤਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਵਸੇ ਨੇ 1984 ਦੇ ਸਾਕੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨਾਂ ਵਾਂ, ਯਹੂਦੀਆਂ ਵਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਚਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਸਥਾਨ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਦਦ ਕਰੇ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਾਏ ਜਾਣ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੇ ਵਾਂਝੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਟਰਫੇਥ ਇੱਕ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਔਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੋਸਟ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਕਸ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਸੀ, ਸਾਡੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੋਸਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਕਾਂਗਰਸਮੈਨ ਵੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਵਿਊ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਅੰਡਰ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਡੋਮੇਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਇਹ ਸਬਜੈਕਟ, ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਇੰਪਾਵਰਡ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਸਫਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਔਰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੌਇਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਇਸ ਪੋਡੀਅਮ ਤੋਂ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਅੱਜ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਧਾਰਨਾ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਅਨੁਕੂਲ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੌਇਸਲੈਸ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਈਆਂ ਸੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਨੀਪੁਰ ਦੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਮਿਆਂਮਾਰ ਦੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਬਰਮਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਔਰ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰੋਹਿੰਗਾਜ਼ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਈਵਨ ਬਹਾਇਆ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਆ ਇਰਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਟਿਵ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ। ਕ੍ਰਿਸਚਨ ਨੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਚਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਰਸੀਕਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬੈਸ਼ੋ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਦੀ ਦੁੱਖ ਆ, ਆਪਣੀ ਪੇਨ ਆ, ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਪਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੋਰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਵੌਇਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਜਾਂ ਇਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੇ ਪੋਡੀਅਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੋਡੀਅਮ ਵੀ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਆ ਉਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾ ਸਕਣ। ਇਸ ਯੂਐਸ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਾਲਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉੱਠ ਸਕੇ। ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਧਰਮ ਆ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡਾ ਅਕੀਦਾ ਆ। ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੋਰ ਲੋਕ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਹਾਰਾ ਦੇਣਾ ਆ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਬੇਸਿਕ ਲੜਾਈ ਸੱਚ ਦੀ ਤੇ ਝੂਠ ਦੀ ਆ, ਇਹ ਸਦੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਆਈ ਆ। ਸੱਚ ਨੂੰ ਉਜਾਗਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ ਥਰੂ ਆਊਟ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਹਾਦਤਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਸਾਡੇ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ੀ ਯੋਧੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਝੂਠ ਆ ਉਹਦਾ ਪਰਦਾ ਫੈਂਕਣਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸੱਚ ਨੂੰ ਉਜਾਗਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਆ, ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਜਾਰੀ ਰਹੂਗੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਗਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।